Hey everybody, how's it going? So today I would like to discuss a piece of news that a lot of people seem to be excited about having my opinion on, even though this really has nothing to do with things I talk about or right to repair. And I think that the very fact that people are excited to hear my opinion on this scares me because it means that there may be a misconception about what right to repair actually is, and I'd like to go over that in this video. So this piece of news is that the European Union is announcing plans to require all mobile devices to use USB-C. That would include smartphones, like the iPhone. As many of you know, Apple uses a Snowflake charge port on their phones. Now, I understand why they started using Lightning back in 2012, because back then, most phones were using mini or micro USB as a charge port and also for transferring files and data. And micro USB is horrible. It is an abomination on this world, and the sociopathic individual who is responsible for creating this and releasing it into the world should be punished for his crimes against humanity, in my opinion. Micro USB is the port that I'm using on this little audio interface, and it's a port that has two teeth on it, so it has teeth. It has a decent amount of friction for when you're plugging it in, so it's not smooth. You kind of have to push it in there. So even if you're plugging it in the right way, you still feel like you got to push it a bit. And if you plug it in the wrong way, the teeth will go into the port and rip everything out of it. So it requires force to plug it in, so it's kind of difficult to tell if you're plugging it in the right way or not. It only goes in one way, and if you put it in the wrong way, the teeth rip everything out. Again, the sociopathic individual that came up with the idea for micro USB absolutely should be put on trial for crimes against humanity. So what Apple did is they came up with a port that transfers data over USB 2 at around 480 megabit per second, but this port had no teeth and could be plugged in either way. So there was no more destroying the charge port in the phone when you plug it in. So there was actually a technical benefit to Lightning when it came out in 2012. The problem is that we're now still in we're at 2021. There's no point in having a Lightning port anymore compared to USB-C. USB-C is standard, USB-C can deliver more power, and above all, USB-C is way faster. 480 megabit per second, it comes out to I don't know, somewhere like 50 or 53 megabytes a second or something, which, by the way, that's theoretical. It never actually winds up transferring at 480 megabit per second. You're always getting something below that. So, on average, a lot of people get 40, they're lucky to get 37 to 45 megabytes per second out of it, which in 2021 sucks, especially when you consider the speed of the storage in these portable devices. It's getting faster and faster and faster each year. You have people who are, talking about how amazing it is that these phones can now record in ProRes resolution and ProRes codec, which is going to be fairly high bit rate. So you're going to have you're advertising the device as a device where you can film really high bit rate content, but the way I'm going to get that content onto my computer in order to actually work with it is USB 2. It's a joke. And you'll notice that there are many, many simps out there that really, really want it to be slower. Please give me something slower. Yes, please give me a slower data transfer. 480 megabits, yes. And you look at this. It says they're actually arguing in favor of that. You are in the 0.1%. The vast majority of people never plug their phones into anything other than power. And they're defending the fact. They are actually fucking defending the fact that there is a 480 megabit per second limit on the ability to transfer data to a phone that advertises itself as something that you can record ProRes video on. Fanboys of any kind, absolute, utter cancer. But I digress. So this would force Apple to, catch up with the rest of society and use USB-C. Now, why does Apple not use USB-C? Money. Because all the benefits of Lightning over micro USB you have with USB-C. You can plug it in both ways, there's no teeth in the connector, and it's way faster, and you can deliver more power. The one reason that Apple is still using Lightning in 2021 is because they can charge for it. So if you want to make a Lightning cable, and you want to be able to advertise it as, real Lightning cable, you need to pay Apple money. If you want to make an accessory that plugs into this phone, you need to pay Apple money. And they like money. We all like money. The problem is when that money is disrupting innovation. And here it clearly is. Once you get to the point where you have a device that can actually record ProRes video in better quality than many DSLRs from just a few years back, and you're seriously advocating for that thing to not have removable storage that I can unplug and plug into my computer, and be limited to 480 megabit per second. That's fucked up. So the EU is coming out with a mandate that got to use USB-C if you're going to have a port in the device. What do I think of that? And what does that mean for right to repair? When people ask me what this means for right to repair, that scares the ever-loving fuck out of me. Because what that means is that a lot of people out there have no idea what right to repair is. Right to repair has nothing to do with your choice of a port that you use when you design your product. If you want to use mini USB, micro USB, Lightning, USB-C, a parallel port, a cloaca, a DL connector like what you have at a studio, an XLR port, quarter. I don't give a shit what type of charge port you use in the device. Right to repair is about this. Once you've decided to use whatever mini USB, micro USB, a cloaca, whatever you put into that device to allow it to charge, can we buy that part? If you use a USB-C port, but then you tell the company that makes that little USB-C port that fits on it, don't sell it to anybody else but us, that's anti-right to repair. If you use a Lightning port, but you allow people to buy the Lightning port, that would be pro-right to repair. Right to repair is not about the port that you use. It's about whether that part is made available to independent repair centers and users of the device that purchase the device that want to be able to fix it themselves. I don't care what type of port you use in the device. Obviously, I would prefer that you use USB-C. But from a right to repair standpoint, I personally don't care what port you use in the device. It has nothing to do with right to repair. It has to do with whether or not, people in Europe are going to have separate cables for these devices and everything else. Now, there is the argument that government is going to disrupt innovation. And I most certainly, anytime you're invoking the government, I would rather invoke them to enforce a principle than enforce a design specific. So when it comes to right to repair, I am not saying you cannot use glue to hold a battery in. I'm not saying you need to use a T3 screw instead of a T5. I'm not, the last thing that I would ever want to have happen. The seventh circle of hell would be listening to Kevin McCarthy, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Mitch McConnell argue over whether a backlight chip should be QFN soldered versus micro BGA. I think that would be the end of technology as we know it and the end of us all. I'm not advocating for that. Right to repair is about a principle. Whatever the hell you use to design it, make it available. That's easy to enforce. It doesn't require technical expertise. It doesn't require regular meetings as technology evolves, and it doesn't hinder technology from evolving. I am very, 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 very scared of giving Nancy Pelosi, Kevin McCarthy, Chuck Schumer, and Mitch McConnell the ability to argue back and forth over what kind of port should be used in a device. And there are many arguments that government is slow, it is bureaucracy is miserable, and that it will stop innovation. The thing that hurts Apple here in making that argument is that they are the ones that are stopping innovation. Literally everybody else in the world has moved on and are using devices that use USB-C or at the very least one of those really awkward super wide micro USB cables that includes the extra data lines for USB 3 so that you get higher transfer speed. Apple is pretty much the only major smartphone provider right now that is stuck at USB 2 speeds. So the one company that is going to be the most against this mandate, the best argument that they could use, which is government stifling innovation, is actually broken by the fact that they have a incentive structure that they've created that stifles innovation. The fact that if they accept a faster and superior standard for charging and data transfer, that they will lose money. So if the Apple lobbyist walks in there, it's like, hey, this is going to hurt innovation, because you always hear TechNet and everybody else all talking about innovation. They're going to look back and go, bro, 480 megabit per second on a device that records ProRes video. Are you kidding me? Now, granted, let's say that a new standard comes out. Let's say that there's a much faster way of transferring, a much faster method of charging, a more reliable, high bandwidth connector. Will it be more difficult for a device to sell in the EU using that connector if there is this mandate in place? Yes. Yes, that is true. And do I necessarily trust the European government to jump on a new standard immediately or add it to the list? I don't know how the EU is in contrast to my own local government. if it's anything like my own local government, which I'm not saying it is, don't have experience with the European government, I would imagine it is if it's like my local government, I would imagine it's a clusterfuck, and I wouldn't trust them to be able to do this at all. Which is why I think it is an absolute crying shame that you have companies like Apple that have really pushed this forward. Because let's face it, if the iPhone didn't exist, you probably wouldn't have people that are clamoring for this legislation, because it really just is, one of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. The Lightning port in a sea of devices that use USB-C. I sincerely hope that this winds up being a good thing, that once there are iPhones that come out that actually use USB-C, that people that want to transfer that ProRes video to their computer are not waiting forever because it's transferring over USB 2 speeds. And I also really do hope that when a new standard comes out or somebody comes up with a new port that actually works, that it is able to be, that this standard is able to be amended quickly and properly, and that there isn't any sort of bureaucratic fuckery and nightmarish mess that leads to this not being changed once, I don't know, USB-D comes out or somebody else comes out with something that transfers at 500 gigabits per second, that powers the device immediately or transmits whatever's on the screen in a holographic format over to the computer. I don't know. Whatever the hell the future comes out with, I do hope that they are able to update this type of legislation very, very quickly. That is going to be key. The last thing we want is for there to be a new port or a new standard to come out and for it to take 12 years for them to update it, and people in the EU are stuck using something obsolete. But Apple is going to be, there's not going to be anything they can say about this, because for years, the company that hires lobbyists that use the innovation argument all the time, they're just going to be stuck there twiddling their dick because there's nothing innovative about the Lightning port. The Lightning port was amazingly innovative in 2012. It was great. Just like the MagSafe, it solved a common problem, which is people destroying their charging ports in their computer. The MagSafe disconnecting quickly stopped people from destroying their charge ports when they tripped over the charger, and the Lightning port stopped people from ripping the guts out of their charge port when they would plug the micro USB cable in the wrong way. Sorry, I just was thinking of the person who created micro USB having something plugged in them the wrong way there, and kind of had a little smile in my head for a moment. But I probably should edit that out of this video. I hope I'm smart enough to edit this out of the video. But the thing is, you need to realize that they can't use that argument because this is one of the few areas where Apple has been more anti-innovation than any other company. I would be happy to see iPhones use USB-C. And I will be happy if this is a type of legislation that can be updated quickly and easily into the future. But it's not a part of right to repair. And just to be clear, I don't want to go down that slippery slope of getting to an area where Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and Kevin McCarthy are arguing over the size of a bezel, how to install a battery, QFN versus micro BGA, should this be socketed or should it not? I want to give them stuff that a 2-year-old can enforce. Essentially, as someone who's 2 to 6 years old should be able to should be able to amongst themselves within a minute or two figure out if something is legal when it comes to the design of the device. I don't want to give them arguments over how to design it. I'm scared of giving them that. I'm scared that they honestly have the level of power that they do right now in our government. And I don't want to give them any more control over technology. Really, just give them the absolute basics. Make parts, schematics, diagrams available. How to deliver those? No. How to design it? No. Just make it available. I have heard some people say, well, aren't you happy that there were standards made for how you can, put gas in your car, that you don't have to go to a different gas station or to get gas? But there is less innovation going on there than there is in the land of smartphones. You have ports over the past 20 years. You've had tons of different ports that have all advanced, whereas over the past 20 years, you haven't really had amazing advancements made in the processing of petroleum to make a far superior gas that makes your car go 3 times as fast without emitting pollution, or the ability to shoot gas out of the hose way better with this one than with that one. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now. And for the love of God, please don't let me catch you being one of these people that actually says, why would you need more than 480 megabit per second of data transfer? Nobody actually uses that. Why do you care? You deserve an iPhone with 640K of RAM. That's all I'm going to say about that.